in the Angels, Shohei Ohtani's already gone, right?
I would have traded him last offseason.
Wow.
Last offseason.
Even with, in the real world, business considerations included.
Well, see, the first thing that you have to do when you walk into the room and this decision is on the table, and I learned this from Jeff Luhnow, who was an excellent executive in Major League Baseball.
Ruthless GMing, yes.
He said, Bo, you have to remove all the emotion. And that's very hard in our game. You have to remove the emotion, and you have to remove anything that's non-baseball related. So when you look at the Anaheim Angels, their biggest issue is not accepting the reality of what the team really is.
And where they are.
Yes, they're not accepting where they are. So when you look at the American League and the notable AL teams, the projected final records.
But right now they're a game out of a wild card. So couldn't you justify holding on to them to this point?
You can try to justify it, but you have to ask yourself this question. All those teams that are in front of you, they're actually in position to make themselves better. The only way you can possibly make yourself better is by depleting your organization even more, which is a huge part of your problem. So when you start to look at, and I'll give you these examples. The Yankees last year having Aaron Judge. You know why they didn't trade him? One, because they had a championship team. Okay? So you don't trade at that point. When you look at the organization, let's just say you have his replacement in place in your organization. The Nationals had Soto sitting in a wing waiting to replace Bryce Harper.
They let him walk.
Yes, they let him walk.
They didn't trade him, but they let him walk. Right.
If you are the Atlanta Braves, you had Freddie Freeman. You knew that you had a championship team. He was due free agency. You were okay waiting until the offseason because
trading for Matt Olson. Yeah, I
had the capital. I had the capital to make the trade.
Right, but there's still. You're right. It's a little more daunting because you have the Astros and the Blue Jays ahead of you, as opposed to those National League teams that you have the Marlins ahead of you.
Exactly.
I agree with you there, but I'm not just saying business considerations. And I rarely push back on this because I'm like, you're right. Baseball decisions only. But Ohtani he puts people in seats. You are trying to be relevant. Right? So if you're tearing it up and then you're wasting, Mike Trout, age 31 and 32 seasons not making the playoffs? Like, how many times can you retrench?
Well, when you start to look at even Mike Trout, Anthony Rendon, Ohtani, let's just look at their big three. When all three of them have been healthy over the course of the last 3 years, they're healthy, they're in the lineup. They're still
not winning.
They're still a sub-500 team.
Right.
So when you start to look at your roster and you say to yourself, even with Ohtani, even with Trout, even with Rendon, and them healthy and in the lineup, we are playing 59 and 62 baseball.
By the way, you're making great points. Hard to do in the real world. Hard to do in
It's hard to do because everyone that you're talking to, they're emotional. You can't trade the best player. You can't do that.
You also have to live in a stadium that people are not showing up for another year, as opposed to they are there.